Okay, so this video is about Module 2, the Humanities, and you should have already started reading the birthmark, and your first task is going to be to complete the birthmark quiz. It's just like the other quiz. You get 2 attempts, and the higher score is the one that will be kept. So if you struggle with this on the first time, ask me some questions. Maybe I can point you in the right direction, and then you can retake the quiz for a higher score. Once that's done, the next assignment is going to be the literary terms assignment. So I've given you a resource as Literary Terms Dictionary in case you struggle with this or if you need some help with this. But on the literary terms assignment, you see that there are 12 literary terms which apply to all kinds of different humanities texts. And you're going to take them and apply them to the story that you just read, the birthmark. The idea is that you want to, for each of the terms, write 1 or 2 sentences that describes an example of that term at work within the text and how it's used. So, for example, maybe I'm working on foreshadowing. So, foreshadowing is when there's a hint of what's to come in the story before it happens, right? It's a shadow of what comes before it happens, hence it's foreshadowing. And so maybe you go through the story and you go, oh, well, here's a point where the author is hinting at what's going to come up. That's foreshadowing. And so then you want to quote that example. You want to say an example of foreshadowing occurs when the text says, quote, and then give what it says, end quote, and in that sentence. And then you just need one more sentence that says something like, this is an example of foreshadowing because. So you're going to explain how your example meets the definition of foreshadowing. Okay? And you'll do the same thing for the others. Maybe you come across an example where the author really establishes a certain mood. Maybe it's a happy mood, maybe it's a very ominous mood or very disturbing mood. Well, where do you see that happening and what words contribute to it? So you might say something like, the author establishes a very somber mood when they say, quote, and then you give the example, period, and then you say, I know that this is an example of a somber mood because, and then you want to explain how what you quoted actually meets that definition of what mood is. Okay, in my personal opinion, the most difficult one, well, the most difficult two, frankly, that students struggle with are allegory and allusion, the first two. So, an allusion with an A is a reference in passing to a previously established story. So, for example, if it's raining really hard outside and someone says, it's raining like Noah's Ark out there, then that is an allusion to a biblical story because it's just a brief reference to a story that we know, and because we know the story, we know what that person meant. But then they continue on, right? They say other things. So that's an allusion. And there's literary allusions, there's biblical allusions. Maybe the text refers to some Greek characters from Greek mythology, or maybe it refers to some other stories, right? But you want to find an example of an allusion and do the same thing like I mentioned for the other two. Allegory is a bit different. So an allegory is when a character or an event or part of this story parallels another story with a certain kind of, in order to bring about a certain kind of meaning, like to have a religious meaning or to have a political meaning, okay? Now because this isn't a face-to-face class, one allegory that I'm just going to hand to you, okay, so that you can use this if you want, is about Ilmer's wife, Georgiana. So, the story starts off, and Georgiana is pure, right? She's sweet, she's angelic, she has this radiant sort of personality. There's nothing malicious in her whatsoever. She's very pure. As the story goes on, she knows that she's going to be led to her death. right? She knows that Elmer's ideas and his plans are going to lead ultimately to her death, and yet she chooses to do it anyway. And at the end, when she passes, there's this image of her soul like ascending, right? And because of her purity, though, it's almost like she was sinless. And so if you look at certain words and certain language that the author uses, in a way, Georgiana is a Christ-like figure. She is an allegory for Christ, an innocent person, blameless, sinless, who willingly takes on to die for someone else. And she there's even hints there of her kind of like taking on his sin onto herself, or taking his flaws onto herself, and then she dies and her spirit kind of ascends upwards, and so ultimately she's kind of a Christ-like figure. And so that is one allegory that is present in the story. There are others, but that's the one that students tend to struggle with the most, is figuring out what allegory is. And so I'm handing you that to allow you to try and look in the text and see how you can see the parallels that are there between that character and the Christ figure, and you can use that as the allegory. Now, if you don't know what some of these words are, of course you have the whole internet at your fingertips, where you can type in those words and you can see what their definitions are and look for examples of them. And I've also given you this literary terms dictionary, and so you can find the words here, like you can search for them here like this, or you can use the search box, and when you find them, you will end up be able to read what those terms mean and see some examples. Okay, so there we go. So you're going to do that literary terms assignment, and you'll upload it as a Word document here. And that's essentially what you're doing for that assignment. Okay, so send me an email if you have any questions on it.